What's going on, y'all? So in this video, we are going to go ahead and put some gauges in Lightnin Bug. We are going to run three 2 1/16 gauges, voltage, water temp, oil pressure, and then we're also going to run a 3 3/4 inch tack with a shift light, just because I want one. Currently, Tim is making our pods for us to mount to the A-pillar, so we'll go ahead and start on the interior wiring, and we have some underhood wiring to do as well. Inside the car, we're going to have 4 wires, a ground, a hot that comes on with a key, a tack signal, and then a headlight signal wiring. And then under the hood, we'll have a ground set up for the oil pressure and the water temp, and then we'll have a signal wire from the water temp and the oil pressure coming into the car. Now with gauges, you can run manual or mechanical gauges, not manual, my apologies, which, like on an oil pressure sensor, or oil pressure gauge, you would want a tube running inside with oil in it to tell the gauge what kind of pressure it's making. Now I'm going electrical, that's the other type of gauge. They use sending units and a signal from the sending unit to tell the gauge what's going on with your engine. So let me show you where we're starting. Okay, so here's what we got going on. Red wire is going to be our hot with key. Black is obviously our ground. Yellow is going to be for our headlights. And then we have 3 wires down here. Purple, brown, and white. Purple is going to be for the tack. Brown is going to be for oil. And white is going to be for the water temp. All I'm doing is soldering leads right now to go under the dash. So here we have our fuse block on the interior and our ground wire. Now this ground wire is left over from the push start and setup. I'm going to repurpose it to solder my ground to my plug. And then fuse 7 is a keyed hot. So what I'll do is I'll put a fuse plug in here to get my hot signal for the gauges. And then we'll move up here, remove the trim panel off the gauge cluster. There'll be two wires we tap into for the gauges, tack signal and the light headlight wiring off our cluster. And you guys can currently see we don't have a A-pillar cover in here because that's over at Tim's. Our harness, as it sits ready to go in the car for now, I've got purple to purple for my tack signal, yellow for the headlights, black for ground obviously, and then red for hot. I don't have the white or the brown on yet, and the problem, or the reason for that is not the problem, sorry guys, is I want to run the wires from under the hood first into the firewall and still find a suitable place to drill a hole in the firewall to run these wires, and then I'll solder them in and make it look nice. 18-pin connector, green wire, black stripe to my yellow wire to supply power for the lights. And then we have the purple wire with a white stripe, and we're going to connect our tack signal to that per the instructions I was given. Now that that's done, we'll put the sensors under the hood. We'll still have to finish up all this here, but we're getting there. I'll show you guys what we did under the hood. You guys can see the green and white wire just curled up in the corner. Those are for the water and the oil pressure. Green is going to go to the oil pressure, white is going to go to the water temp. But I'm going to take all the intake tubing off so I can run wires underneath it and cleanly, because we're going to put a thermostat sensor here. I have an adapter, I think from Mishimoto is who I got it from. And then I've got the oil sending unit I got to put on the bottom side of the block with the factory sending unit. And we're going to also possibly remove the cruise control since it's not connected in this car. I'm not sure we're going to do that in this video. Might just be as simple as disconnecting it and just zip tying the cable out of the way for now. So, let's go and get started on that. Alright, so putting these gauges in the car the tack has to be modified to fit the way that we're going to design the gauge pods. So I'll show you what we're doing here. So as I was saying with the tack, we started cutting the bracket off because we want this smooth so it'll fit into a gauge pod like cup. But cutting it with a jab saw or even a coping saw wasn't working. So we're going to try using a Dremel and see if we can clean this up. We want this as smooth as the rest of the tack. So what we did here was cut the mount off, smooth it out. Now what we're going to do is mask this off and just lay a little bit of gray over it, so at least it's just not white. You're really not going to see this because it's going to be inside this part of it will be in the cup. This part here will be exposed, but it's going to sit like this, so you really won't see it. So we'll at least make it look decent. Wires run under the hood. We're going to mount our sensors. We have a temp sensor and an oil pressure sensor to mount under the hood. We're going to use the upper radiator hose for the water temp, and we're going to go on the back of the block where the stock oil pressure sending unit is and pick up our signal there. Let me show you what we got. Courtesy of Glowshift, we have this 28mm water adapter. You can see the water temp sending unit screws right in there, a little bit of Teflon tape. Now I've got bare wires here. I've stripped these already. My game plan is to take this connector and solder it into it. That way, that way. So we can unhook it and hook it if we ever need to. Now, the sending unit comes with these little bullet connectors. I'm not a fan of these. It doesn't look as clean to me. So we'll solder this, heat shrink it, and then put some tubing on it. Now you guys can see in the background, this is your oil pressure sending unit. This is the adapter for the factory thread size on the block. I have to look it up again. I don't remember off the top of my head. But it adapts the Glowshift sending unit to fit into it. And then right here we still have a spot for the factory sending unit to screw into. That should be coming in today. We'll go ahead and screw that on before we go too far. Now, you guys can see a G and a WK. G is for the ground, WK is for the signal. What we're going to do here is, they use these little plastic knurled pieces right here. I'm not a fan of those. What I have here, sorry, using my belly now because I'm knocking things off the counter. I've got some nylock nuts. I'm not sure if I'm going to use those or just use a double nut and jam nut them. That way these don't come loose. What I'm gonna do is to solder on some eyelets so they hang on here, and then run the ground to the inner fender. The reason I'm not going with one of these is because there's no need. The eyelets will be plenty secure, and if I need to undo it, it's fairly simple and straightforward. I pulled a rookie move and forgot to hit record when I started soldering. These are tight and good together. Slide our heat shrink over, then I'll get my heat gun out and just heat shrink that, or shrink the heat shrink tubing. Now I'll show you guys soldering the grounds together. Well, sometimes things just don't work out. My poor heat gun just bit the bullet. I guess we'll have to go old-fashioned and pull out a lighter and shrink it that way. Now that we have our harness soldered together, we're going to go ahead and get our tubing placed over it, kind of give it that factory look. They make tubing splitters and all that, and I don't think it's needed. So you've got this set up just like this. I left a little bit of end space here and there, so we can use a little bit of electrical tape and kind of secure it. Make it look clean. And that way, sorry guys, I'm kind of spacing, thinking and talking here. Something I can't do, apparently two things at once. We're going to use electrical tape, not only make it look clean, but also kind of keep the tubing from re-splitting and trying to open up. Okay, so you guys can see, nice and wrapped, just like everything else underneath the car. Still has flex and bend to it. Looks pretty clean. When we put it in the vehicle, we're going to aim it like this. That way this can go under the intake tube. Now, we're going to start on this sensor. All I got to do is Teflon tape the new sending unit, or the new OEM sending unit, screw it in here, and then we got to remove the one under the car. Here's the finished oil pressure setup. The only thing I don't like is you can't tell in there, but this protrudes into the orifice quite a bit, so hopefully it doesn't throw off our pressure sensor. As my little helper was helping me, we're going to start by removing the intake tube and disconnecting all the sensors associated with that. That way we have room to work in here. That way I can run the wire to the oil sending unit. The oil sending unit is actually under the manifold over here, and I got to charge my phone a little longer to get y'all some light in there, but we're going to unscrew that from the top side. I'm probably going to have to remove the strut bar just so I can get my hands and arms down in there. You guys can notice the cruise control is missing. You guys will see that at the tail end of the video. So let me go ahead and get started. So we have our
water thingy.
The water sending unit.
The water sending unit.
It's going to go right here.
It's going right there. Can I use my shoe instead?
Sure. And then what we're going to do is cut this wire to length.
Cut this wire to length.
That way we can have the right length lead wire.
That is funny using my shoes.
The hood of Lightnin Bug. You guys can see I have my water temp sensor sitting here. Got my positive signal wire here. I still got to make a ground wire. Then we come over here to the intake manifold, and you guys will notice that the cruise control is missing. I'll show you that at the tail end of the video. But under the intake is where the oil pressure sending unit is. So we're going to unscrew the stock one and put my setup in place of it.
Tube is out. Did I say white, Dad?
Yep. So basically what he said is the intake tube is out. We're going to pull the battery. You guys can see I've got my ground and my hot already soldered in. Those will plug and play here. Sorry guys. And then we're going to come over here to this side. If I can get my camera down in there and show you guys the stock sending unit. The stock sending unit is right back behind the knock sensor.
Yep.
So we're going to unscrew that and then screw the new setup in. Alright you guys, so last night when I was doing this, we hit a snag. This is the one the sending unit adapter I had. This is the one I just got in today. They look identical. 1 1/8 NPT, 1 1/8 NPT, 1 1/8 BSP, 1 1/8 BSP. Now the problem being right here. Let me get in close. Sorry guys. You can see how this is more cone shaped and this is more squared off. I'm wondering if this is an NPT fitting, and that's a BSP. I really don't know. I do know this one fits, so we're going to go ahead and put everything on this adapter and go from there. I really think this is an NPT, and they sent me the wrong one. Sending unit is assembled, ready to go in. I decided with the Glowshift sending unit, I'm going to go ahead and make a pigtail that plug and plays. Just due to where it's located, I don't want it to be creating a pain in the butt for myself trying to get underneath the car. So what we'll do is we'll put some terminal or some ring ends on this right here, and then just bolt it on, and then screw it in place, and then it could be plug and play. You can kind of see the setup in here. Here's the factory sending unit. Oh, where's my finger? Right there. Here's the aftermarket one, and then we'll just plug and play it off the wiring harness. So here's your factory plug. Kind of hard to see in here. Here you guys go. Oh my guys, I can't see nothing. Sorry. It's always weird doing this through a camera. So anyways, we got that on, and we'll call it good. Alright, so we got the wiring nice and clean and convoluted tubing. You guys can see how it runs under the dash here, and then it comes out here. So this will go to my sending unit for the oil, and that'll go to my water temp, and they will route, clean, and clear the battery. Now we're going to pull the upper radiator hose. I need to triple check the temperature sending unit diameter. I don't recall if I did it in the first place, but part of me feels like this might look a little small. I'm hoping not. Alright guys, I kind of jumped the gun a little bit. So here's my upper radiator hose. We cut it in half. I cut it right at the bend. Now, what I used was just a pipe cutter, PVC cutter, hose cutter. Now what we'll do is we'll take this, put it into here, put it into the other side, and hose clamp it and call it good. So I've got it sitting on the radiator and on the water neck here. I'll clamp it here. I'm going to get this sitting aimed down a little lower. Then we'll plug and play. So I goofed up. Tim has my hose clamps with the water temp gauge. So for now it's just going to sit. I'm not putting any extra coolant in it. But it'll just be simple plug and play. How I designed it. And I left some slack, and I know it's a little long, but that's so I can route this differently if I need to. Kind of hard to do one-handed, y'all. Okay, so everything's plugged in. Now that allows some room for my intake tube, etc. to go through here. I've got the bucket over here with a little bit of coolant. We didn't lose anything. Caught it all in that. So, once we get the clamps on it, that'll be done. Then we take this, and I know I've got the pigtail on it. I broke my sending unit, so I'm going to put the other one in it for now to get it running, and then we'll swap it out. But that'll mount up to the new one, and it'll be plug and play as well. So we're starting our mock-up. I wanted to get the tack in before I showed you guys this to make sure we weren't having any killer fitment issues. Don't mind the pigtail, we'll clean all that up. So tack, then we're going to start laying out the existing other gauges, working our way up. We're going to mount, this is going to be several times of fishing this in and out, just so we make sure we have everything still lined up and visible. Killer work. So what we're doing is, we mark the front hole, and then we're drilling that out while we're in the vehicle. Then we're going in here and marking the secondary out of the vehicle so we can get it all cleaned and proper. And then what we'll do is once we get two lined up, we'll mark the third for the wiring to pass through, as you guys can see here. First two are bolts, third is so the wire hides in there. So we got tack. I think we said we're going to put oil pressure, water, and then voltage up in here. We're doing the last gauge a little different, only because we can't match the angle due to the shape of the pillar. So what we're going to do is get it close, pull it out, do a final drill and mount. And you guys can see I've got the wires tucked in there already. Once we get this secure, I'll go back on the bench, and then I've got to figure out all that fun stuff right there. Lucky most of it is all together. I just have to remember what gauge is what, so when I hook it to a pigtail, it all actually works. All too familiar face be coming on this channel.
Hey guys.
He's putting on the last pod. Tim's been a huge help with this. So we'll get this done. And then the next job is for me to solder all, God, what is it, 4 wires a gauge, so 12, 14 wires together.
Yeah.
So it looks pretty sick though. You guys kind of see the layout.
Let me do this for you.
It's going to look sick.
I think that'll work.
Yep. We are using the tinted gauge series from Glowshift. Going to do voltage, water temp, oil pressure, and a tachometer with shift light. The gauges look almost blacked out until power is supplied, and then they'll light on, as well as they have a nice old school look to them. Well, Tim and I got the gauges mounted. You guys can just see it's 2 bolts that hold them in. The wires all come in nice back here. We'll have voltage I don't remember how I laid this out. Sorry, guys. Voltage, water temp, oil pressure, tach. Now, the thing is, each gauge has 4 wires except for the voltage, obviously. What we're going to do is piggyback the grounds, the headlight, and the accessory wire together. So 3 of these will share a common wire. Well, all 4 of these will share a common wire. My apologies, guys. And then 3 of these will have their own individual wires for the sending units. That way we can get those all wired up neatly. You guys can tell this is going to be a fun little cluster. I've got to clean my workbench before we get started. And then we'll get rolling on this. Now, something else I want to mention. I am not going to be using tubing like I did under the hood. For the simple fact that I want this to be able to fit. We're going to have a lot of tight space. So I'll come up with another game plan as time allows on how to hold it all together. Alright, you guys, so you can see I kind of just zoned out and didn't record the soldering. It's my kind of way of relaxing. But we've got a nice loom. It's going to be plug and play with me under the dash. Everything's heat shrunk and soldered. You guys can see where I use heat shrink instead of zip ties to kind of reserve some space in the A-pillar. That way it'll all keep it nice and clean. So you guys, we have the underhood all back together. Now we're going to test fire it, check for leaks, especially here. The oil set pressure gauge isn't working right now, and that's only because I'm waiting on a new sending unit. As soon as that comes in, that'll be fixed. We do have Tim working on something to hide all the junk back there in that corner, make it look clean. But you guys can't even see the wiring, it's all tucked and neat. Now let's go ahead and check the inside gauges. Alright, you guys, gauges are working. I'm going to go ahead and cut to how I deleted the cruise control to make more room. I add that as part of this video. So go ahead and check this out. While we're doing the gauges and the wiring, I'm going to go ahead and remove the cruise control setup out of Project Lightnin Bug. It's not hooked up at the steering wheel, and it's in my way all the time if I want to work on things like the alternator, etc. Not to mention, it'll clean up the engine bay a little bit. So we'll go ahead and show you guys. I know I spent... Alright, we're getting ready to run the wiring for the oil pressure sending unit and all that, which will be underneath the intake manifold. And while I'm in here and I'm doing stuff, I'm going to go ahead and remove the cruise control setup. I don't use it. It doesn't work. Going to the aftermarket steering wheel, and all I do is around town driving anyways. So we'll take all this apart. We're just going to tuck the wires out of the way, and we're going to put a cap on the vacuum line, or on the vacuum on the manifold. And then you can see the cable runs here, down under here, into the firewall, and we're going to pull that out and put a plug in place. And talking about moving the cruise control, you're just going to pull the vacuum line here. We're going to undo the bolt nut here, which I believe is a 14 or 15 millimeter. We'll undo this 10 millimeter bolt, or nut here, sorry, I keep saying bolt. And then we'll take this whole assembly out as one unit. To release the cable for now, 10 millimeter here in front of my finger, and a 10 millimeter on this side right here. That'll take the module out and the electronics. The rest of the electronics we're just going to tuck into a corner for now, and unplug the sensors. Alright, cruise control stuff is out of the way. We got all that room there. I'm going to work on an idea for this. I don't know what I'm doing yet, but I'll keep you guys posted. Now we got the cable removed from the firewall. You guys can see it's a square hole. So I'm gonna use a step bit and round that hole out. See that hole right there? And then we'll put a plug in it. Here's the cruise control cable. And that end I broke but it goes into the firewall and then hooks to the pedal. There's a little rod that hooks next to the pedal that I'm working on getting free, and probably going to cut it out because I don't plan on putting it back in. So let me get in there and show you guys what's going on. Okay, so this is going to be a little hard to get in here and show you guys. You see this rod right in front of my finger? Yeah, let's see if I can reach this while holding my camera steady. This part right in here, this thing is what controls cruise control. Now, without taking this all apart, I'm going to just try to cut the rod for it in half and take it out, and we'll go from there. Alright, so here's the part that hooks to the pedal. Something I couldn't really show you too well under the inside of the dash. This hooks up like this, and then this slides through the bracket, and this part is where your cable connects. So I've just bent the bracket enough to pull this free. I ended up not cutting it. Now, where it goes to the dash, we are left with a square hole. I'll show you guys here. Bear with me 1 second. You guys can see where this 1-inch plug is. This was originally a 3/4 inch square hole. What I did do was I just filed it with a rat tail file, till it was round, and then I pushed the plug in it, and now that should seal our firewall. And like I was saying earlier, all kinds of room. Looks so much cleaner. Now, one thing I'm not happy with is this mess here. I'm working on an idea for that. I haven't come up with it yet, but I'm thinking about building a bracket to put here, and then see if Tim can print me a 3D box that'll sit on the bracket, because there's no weight to it. And what we'll do is we'll run all the wires into it, put a lid on it, and it'll just be like a factory like fuse block box or something. Just an idea I'm having. So that's where we're at. Show you guys, and I'm showing you now, is the map sensor and the vacuum for it have to stay on the vehicle. So make sure you move that away. I modified the powder coated bracket for it for now. I kind of left this part out and I thought I should show you guys. So this is just gonna tuck in back down low where you guys aren't gonna see it, kind of tucked up in the corner, and then we still have all that room over here. Well, you guys, this is going to go ahead and conclude the video. Gauge is in, cruise control deleted. Not sure what else is coming on with Lightnin Bug lately. I know I've got Tim making that box to hide the solenoids. We've got some videos for Gus coming up. Yeah, you know what? I think that's going to be the next video. This is a video for Gus and what's happened to him and what's going on with him. But he is still here and there's a lot going on. So thanks y'all for watching. God bless. If you guys like these videos, go ahead and click the like button, hit subscribe. Take care.